This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. We are here in the mobile studio at Consumer Electronics Show 2020, and we have a guest here in the mobile studio, Albert Zeeman. When's the last time you were here at the show? You were here with me last year? Was it last year?
Well,
or 2 years ago.
2 years ago, I met you here.
Right.
And I remember that when you moved to the Central Plaza, when it was, you had a wet booth.
Yep.
You remember the rainstorm?
Yes. It rained. And it lost power.
Exactly.
And then we had to actually move all the press interviews into the mobile studio.
Yeah. Well, you had a very good secret place. You had to know to find it.
Yeah,
but
over there.
Yeah, but you had a great overview.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think this place is better.
Yeah. Well, everybody likes the mobile studio. One, it gives you a little bit of a break from the hustle and bustle of the show and et cetera. So you've been here all week so far.
Yep.
You know, taking a look at everything going on here at the show. A lot of changes, both in the industries that come to Consumer Electronics Show, but also the makeup of the companies that are here at CES. So what are you seeing?
Well, what I see is, I think there are time blocks, and you see the last 2 years, definitely a few things have changed. I remember, this is my 16th CES. And,
I got you beat. I counted 25.
Yeah, okay, you're the real veteran.
Or the one not so smart.
But, we both know that we had, when the iPad and the iPhone came, North Hall was fully focused on the Apple economy.
Right.
All the accessories, the cables, cases, and all that other stuff. And that slowly slipped away. And then 3 years ago, the cars and everything, and now it's fully automotive.
Yeah.
And North Hall is, you see the latest, greatest cars.
Like the flying cars.
Flying cars. There are, there are several drones, passenger,
right.
The autonomous. So it's really exciting. You see all brands like Ford now with new electronic cars. A lot of sensors, a lot of technology. But also, I read and I heard it on the news that it caught the attention of the local government, because they really realize now they have to do something with legislation.
Right.
It's who is responsible and all those other stuff.
Well, it opens up an interesting question. We've been having a discussion here this week at CES around. I've seen more policymakers here.
Yeah.
So like. Chairman Pai, the chairman of the FCC's here, the head of the Department of Energy was here earlier in the week from the U.S. government. You saw a number of people from the EU here, a lot of people.
A lot of state secretaries of the European countries are here, because in Europe we realize we have to be an economy of creation and ideas. Production is no longer in Europe.
Right. Production is not in a lot of places anymore.
No. So and that's what you see, that especially the French, I think they took it very, very good. They got a very big pavilion here, and the Dutch also have a Dutch pavilion, and Germans, and that's what you see changing now. So a lot of from the U.S. government regarding legislation, autonomous vehicles, and for the startups, you see all these other economies who send their politics here and to promote the country.
Right. The challenge, though, that and I've written about this many times over on my blog at filmbikini.com, is around what is the role of government to encourage innovation, and what does government do to throw roadblocks or discourage innovation? And one of the roadblocks is the inability for government and policies to keep pace at the rate of innovation. It's almost like it's chasing behind and putting fingers in the dike. Right? Like my Dutch reference there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Putting fingers in the dike, because people didn't get ahead of it on the legislative side, and something bad happens. Yeah. And then you're trying to play catch up and fix.
But I think they can never catch up.
I agree.
First of all,
I actually agree with you on this, because I think people who say the government's got to pick up the pace and catch up is the wrong perspective. Yeah. What I think government should do, and I'd be interested in your feedback on this, is they need to set the guardrails. of what that expectation is.
You know, my background is marketing and IT,
Right.
and I love the slogan, which is here is where data is born, and that's, I think, is the most interesting thing. You see all these connected products, and there's a lot to be done by governments to safeguard the privacy or the digital identity of people. And I know it's a very big statement, but I think if the privacy is not controlled, inequality will be bigger,
right.
And in the end, it's harmful for democracy.
Right.
So I think there's a major role for governments to take action. And the downside is, of course, there are exceptions, but not the best people are at the government. You know, it's I worked for an organization where we helped people who are with lower income, but on the website we had Google Analytics. Hey, all these people who are searching our Q&A about help for Social Security and debt, they all got tagged by Google, and they are targeted by people, clever marketeers, who know exactly to target them with Facebook. So now we are elaborating away from the CS, but I think that you pinched my the right spot. I think the government really should take action here.
Well, I think on the data side, but for instance, you know, one of the big things we have here at CS is AI.
Yeah.
Everybody's got AI attached to everything.
But do you remember neural networks?
Yeah.
You know, when in '95 I worked for Vodafone, and we already profiled people based on the Nokia. We knew where they were. We knew exactly which phone they had. We knew the status of the battery, when it was plugged. So it was very easy to say, okay, we got this social demographic profile of a person, so we will profile them, and then when they call them and we think we cannot make money off them, we will put them in the end of the line, and if we think you are an opportunity for us, put them in the front.
Right, but the challenge in today's AI is the fact that if I'm going to do, you know, like a machine learning or a GAN network-based AI, the fact of the matter is the AI's decision-making gets defined based on the training data. You cannot audit the decision-making, right? And based on the training data, you can create an AI that's biased.
Yeah.
It could be ethnicity, racial.
But still, humans define the borders and the direction where AI is going.
Right. But
because that's where the creativity comes in.
Right. But I think in some cases, people don't recognize their own biases. I was looking on the show floor on Tuesday or Wednesday, looking at some new facial recognition technology, right, that's using, you know, AI machine learning. It's like, you know, here's 500 photographs, pick the photographs with a cat in it type of thing. And what was interesting is the people who are creating the training data set that goes in that says, this is a face, recognize this face, those types of things, they themselves don't recognize their own bias.
No.
Right? And so it's not intentional. It's an unintended consequence. And the question comes down to is if I do AI, facial recognition, I just don't recognize you. But if I do machine learning to identify people who may be potentially, at risk for a health condition or mental health or whatever, and I'm biased because I created the training data set and I didn't create it correctly, you could create decisions.
And I think there is also another very important thing. The people who define these directions need to have some sort of ethical standards and life experience. So, well, I'm now talking as a 50-plus guy to another 50-plus guy. But I do think, I know 30 years ago, as a young, angry young man, and we did everything because we knew, if we do this, we can make this the new business model, etc. And definitely there needs to be some guidance in these big corporations, working with data, working with AI, to set the ethics standards and also to make sure that, we also keep what we value, which is, some standards in life.
Well, and your point is right on from the standpoint of ethics in these spaces, right? And this kind of gets back to where we started off this segment, talking a little bit about the role of government. Government can't legislate every possible rule. Government can't micromanage because it just moves too fast, right? But setting some form of ethical principles, not even ethical laws, but ethical principles, right? I'll steal a line from Google, do no harm. Now you can argue whether that's true anymore or not, but what are some of those ethical principles that people get held to?
Well, the good thing is the new Privacy Act from California, which is started the 1st of January this year, definitely defines some good borders.
Well, we could argue whether those are good borders or not good borders. There's a lot of varying opinions.
I had a small reading on it, so I didn't know the details, but in essence, I thought, well, the idea is good.
Well, I think the idea of privacy is good. There's a whole issue of...
It's on the agenda. That's important.
Well, the problem is you can't do it in a single state versus around the country as large as the United States. So we're going to continue on this conversation. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll pick up the conversation where we're leaving off here, talking about really what's that future look like. So hold on there. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. Hey, we were talking before about what we've seen on the floor. You were talking about some of the changes, how the proliferation of automobiles and the, what used to be the iOS, Apple, iPad ecosystems, and, TVs have always been here. Now it's just how big can you make a TV? 200 plus inch, Samsung.
Well, the screens are huge, but also projection is back.
Yep.
So that's also, and the screens have become modular.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Samsung's got that one where you can start off, and you can make it actually slap it together like Legos, and
simply because they don't have bezels anymore.
Right. But they're smart enough to know as I attach it, you can actually create very unique aspect ratios and all kinds of really crazy stuff. But the question I wanted to say is, if you notice something that's not here, something that traditionally was always at the CES show, but because of the morphing of the industry or changes have occurred that have just kind of gone away?
Well, you see, definitely the Apple and the iOS things are definitely less. Also, what has disappeared are these Chinese little companies with all the cables, connectors, and the buttons and the LEDs.
Over here, over at the Wingate, which used to be the Las Vegas Hilton years ago, that was the home base for Elvis when he was in resident here in Las Vegas. The Wingate, you'd have these little bitty 3-foot tables, and there'd be one company that just did nuts, and another one that did bolts, and one that did little LED lights. They are no longer
here in Westgate, so you now see that this whole Westgate is an extension to the North Hall.
Right.
In North Hall, you see all the automotive, everything Apple, etc. is gone.
Right.
The Blue Launch, also these companies who make these beautiful design products. I haven't seen them. And you now see this Westgate is now more the technology surrounding autonomous vehicles and data analysis and sensors, etc.
It brings up a good point, because on Tuesday morning, I went over and got a private tour for Corning. Mm-hmm. And Corning, you think about Corning as being fiber optic cables and standard windshields. Corning now is all about the glass and the touch experience.
It's all about display. I had a video 15 years ago by Corning Glass about that the window will become the interface of the future.
Right.
And you see definitely already a few things here in that direction. And I'm sure that next year we will see more interactive displays on the glass. But did you see the Mercedes?
No, I did not see the Mercedes yet.
Awesome. I was really amazed. First of all, the design guy, you see they were less loose with a budget of a lot to make the best concept car there is, and they explained what they did. And the interface they had is your hand. It's light, so it's beamed in your hand. And if you want to move in the menu, you wave your hand. And if you want to select it, you grab it. It's amazing. So the philosophy they had, glass, even though it's more, you have to move forward and you have to touch it. Now they let the interface come to you. So that was really amazing.
I don't know. There's always been this attempt to try to do gestures.
It's a concept car.
Yeah, remember? I got it. But I'm always the one that's trying to say, okay, what does this look like?
I don't want
5
to
years
imagine
from now?
if I got Parkinson and I have to do gesture control. So I think there is something there.
No, over there. No, over here. Over here.
So the guy's not drunk, but he has something. Okay.
Yeah.
And what you also what has disappeared? Well, I worked for this company making mounts, Vogels, and well, there were, I think, 30 or 40 of these companies all making mounts, brackets for TVs.
Right.
And
the old Visa mounts and
the
all
Visa
that.
mounts. I now only counted 3, and those are the 3 companies who still stick and hold on to this old market. And that's also interesting. Audio, headphones, for instance, was huge. The buy by Apple of Beats definitely changed something in that market,
Right.
so everybody bailed out. And in that market, I find one
But now
product.
but now it's earbuds.
Now it's earbuds.
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah,
the
and
headphones. It's wireless earbuds
and
everywhere.
everybody laughed about those Oral-B toothbrush AirPods by Apple.
Yeah.
But now you see loads of already copies. So,
Yeah.
but what I found amazing is in the headphones, you had this American company Velodyne. I don't know whether I pronounce it right. You know that company? They are based in. They had the roots in audio. And this guy is an inventor, and he saw that this audio market is changing. I visit all these audio brands. They had big offices, and now they have big rooms. Let's put it that way. That definitely has changed. And he made a change to LiDAR, so the sensor for autonomous driving.
Right, so LiDAR being mapping the 3D space
so the
in front of the view.
laser sensing of the environment, and you got radar, and you got vision, and you got infrared. It's one of the 4 sensors they use. And but I never heard of LiDAR, and when I came here looking for the next new headphone, I found this company Velodyne with LiDAR, and I thought honestly that LiDAR was an invention by them.
Oh.
But the good thing is they noticed their market was disappearing, and they did something dramatically different, and they went into a new market. And I think you need guts, you need vision, you need brains. I'm really truly amazed about companies who do that, and they are still here, and the booth is even bigger.
Yeah,
and that's the good thing about the CES. You see also these things. There's some companies disappear. You remember Monster, how monstrous they were?
Monster Cable, Monster.
I really feel sorry for Noel Lee, because I think he was. Well, I think it was more important for Beats and people in the industry recognize. Mm-hmm. He really made it. I remember when Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre introduced it together with Noel Lee on stage when they introduced their Beats.
Well, I did the Beats deal with HP. So we had Beats, so we had all the Beats audio in the laptops. We did the deal with Dre and Jimmy.
Yep.
But the deal was we would not do headphones because that was Monster.
Yeah.
But we were the first to put Beats into laptops, all-in-ones, that type of thing.
Yeah. We were talking about things that disappeared. Perhaps I'm no longer invited, but I think it's also disappeared. This Monster event. You know this event?
They used to do the big live concerts.
Yeah, I saw Fleetwood Mac there, Diana Ross. Stevie Wonder, all these great guests. And also remember the first time I had to really, I was not familiar with the system. So they said we open at 7. You know a bit how the show went, You get 7 till 12 o'clock. The biggest dealer award, the biggest salesman award, the biggest ever award. So we were sitting there as a few Dutch guys. Forever. And sipping on a free concert, but sipping beers of $20 each.
Yeah.
That was the model. But that's disappeared. So I hope Monster's still doing fine, but I haven't seen their booth here.
I haven't, and I have to be quite honest, I haven't had a chance to be, on the floor. So when we come back, we'll take another quick commercial break. We come back, we'll pick up the conversation about what we're both seeing here at the show, what some of those changes are. And I'd like to get your take on the healthcare side, because I know it's an area of interest for you. It's an interest for me. I have not had a chance to get over to the Venetian and the Sands. So when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back. So, Albert, you've been over they've shuffled the show around here a little bit, and more of the startups are over at Eureka Park.
Yep.
Right? And you've been over there.
Yeah, I've been there.
And I've heard it's supposed to be like absolutely like sardines packed in over there. And there's a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. There's like thousands of companies in Eureka Park.
Well, we previously talked about what disappeared. I don't know when it disappeared, but we had during CES, the last day, we had this adult entertainment thing in
that's gotta be 8 or 10 years ago.
Long ago.
Right.
But now this is completely stacked with startups. So there are the total number, I was told, of the exhibitors is the same, but because of these North Hall vehicle things and the flying cars, they need more space, and that's also the reason why you now know why it is so small and crowded in the Sands.
Yeah.
So what we used to have, these little Chinese companies with all these little desks, now are all startups. They are all people who have an idea. They think they're going to change the world. Everybody's waiting for them, and they're all yelling for attention and investment.
Right.
And they're all there. And it's very interesting to walk there and to see how people are doing. And you definitely see that a few have the right things, but I think 99% of them will flunk.
Right.
Because if you talk to them, and then if you ask a few marketing questions from what is the need you are addressing, and why would people love your product, and why would people love to distribute your product, not also important, you don't always get the right answers.
Well, it's interesting because everybody thinks, I've got the best idea, and the best idea wins. That is an innovation myth.
Yeah.
It's not about the best idea. It's got to be the whole package.
Execution,
and in many cases, there's a good idea and a great idea is never the idea. In many cases, it's around the timing. Is the need there? Do you have a channel and an ability to reach?
You talk about timing. I have to tell you something. I was in the plane and I saw the documentary about General Magic.
Yep.
It was all about timing. They had the future in their hands about this. They foresaw where the smartphone was going.
Right.
But you also see that they typically behave themselves like many companies here, the startups, that they isolate themselves from the surroundings. They don't see what's happening in the world.
Right.
And then you lose eye for execution. I also see a trend there. You see all these startups, but you also see companies making money of helping startups.
Yep.
So you've got the hardware company is such a company. You got Copilot is such a company. And, to be frank, Kickstarter is also such a company.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people who kickstarted products, but in the end, it's a break-even game. It's all about publicity. And
there's also a lot of Kickstarters that never ship.
Well, I've ordered 3 products which should be shipped before Christmas, before CES, and all 3 I haven't got them. So even a company like Peak, who solely uses Kickstarter to launch their products, they are not here.
Yeah.
They are from San Francisco, I think. They do an outstanding thing, but they couldn't deliver.
Well, I'm trying to remember who are the watch guys that only used
Pebble.
Pebble.
I was at the launch.
Well, and Mark Solomon, who's a direct report to me at HP, went to become head of industrial design at Pebble. And I always thought the Kickstarter model was kind of interesting because you didn't have to order manufacturing until you knew the volume you were going to get or whatever. But the margins are just so razor thin.
But a lot of these people differentiate them from other people here. They start a startup as a side thing or so. I don't know what it is, but I don't know whether you remember Dropcam, for instance.
Oh yeah.
Dropcam was managed by a lady, and it was a great product, and it's now bought. Ring by Jamie, also bought by Amazon. Also Nest was launched here, not really a startup, but they started small.
Right.
And when, as a Dutch press, I come from Europe, I talked to these people when they were, and that's also the great thing being here, because if you can pick them, you find the people who are very successful in the future. And what I learned from Elizabeth, who ran Dropcam, and Jamie from Ring, and from Tony from Nest, they all rejected to send me a sample. They were entrepreneurs. They knew that their market was first America and then Europe. they had a vision how also to do the roadmap on supply chain and all these other things.
Well, I think the characteristic there is focus.
Yeah.
You can tell right away that when you're talking with an entrepreneur and they're not focused and they're just throwing everything out there they can to see what sticks.
Exactly.
And let that then direct, you know.
And that's what I learned from a few guys and a lady I worked for, is they differentiate. They do a few things. They don't do everything. But also a mistake startups make is to only go for one target audience and one need. You cannot. Then you are dependent on the adoption by your target market.
Right.
So my advice is always to startups: redefine your marketing strategy in at least 3 or 4 target audience and what needs you fulfill there, and then you can see if with an entrepreneurial heart and a vision what picks up, and then put your beans in that bag, and then you can make some difference.
Right, but in many cases they don't define the market up front and then target. They just throw it out there and then try to categorize the market based on the response.
Exactly.
Which they do it is kind of backwards.
Yeah.
Versus saying, no, I'm going to target 17 to 25-year-olds, who are big Snapchat users and doing XYZ. That's one target. The other target, they don't define it up front.
But there are also, and that's a one typical group of startups. But you also see other startups which are spin-offs of technical research, and I think these are the most interesting ones, especially in med health. You see them. I know there's a Dutch company. They had a research on controlling your keyboard with your brain, and it was made for patients with locked-in syndrome. So those are people you don't want to ever be in that situation, that you can think everything but you cannot communicate. Because they made this product that they can control a keyboard with the brain. But now they are here offering their product as an API for other companies interested to control their products, their games or whatever with the brain. And they're not the only one. You see, when I first learned about them, it's the company Mind Effect, and then I looked to other companies, and now you see the wave is there. You see you see many bands for reading your mind, and,
right?
And the question is always, what will be the one which has the right things? And another amazing thing I saw here is power over the air. So not wireless, not contactless. It's over the air, and it's a rather small company, but I got this press release with the NDA, I think 2 weeks prior to the CES, and I thought, well, this is groundbreaking technology. And then within a few days, I got another press release of a similar concept, and then another one, a similar concept. And I always start wondering then, is there a chipset which is available now for everybody? What is it, But I had a demo, and I know you are of really game changers, and that could be a game changer.
Well, and it's interesting because, at HP, when we acquired Palm was the first mobile phone that had wireless charging.
It came from U.S. Robotics.
Right. Yeah. It was the U.S. Robotics, / Palm merger acquisition. And Casey Caldwell was the CEO for U.S. Robotics from Chicago. I'm from Chicago, longtime friends. But one of the things you learn in wireless charging is as you increase the distance that you're trying to do free air power through, the efficiency drops.
If you got 1 or 2 antennas. And the secret in their product is they got 1,000 antennas.
Right. But it's not zero. You still lose power, right?
Yeah. Well, they say they lose approximately 50% power.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is still quite good.
Well, it's better than it's better than the early stuff or even the Cubase stuff today. Because Cubase stuff today, if you're more than 2 inches, you've lost 98% of the power. Yeah. Right. So you only have maybe 2% efficiency. Yeah. Not a very green story when you're blowing all that power and losing it.
So I'm not a scientist, but I listened to that story and I thought it was very interesting. Well, perhaps I can elaborate on that.
Yeah. So we'll continue this conversation because this is an area that I've dug into, and actually I have a friend of mine who's CEO of a company that does wireless charging of electric vehicles, where you pull into the parking spot and it charges. So we got a lot to talk about there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break, and we'll continue our conversations here at CES 2020. Welcome back. So, Albert, we were going into commercial break and we got into the discussion on wireless power and wireless efficiency. So, continue on. What have you seen on this one use case? And
well, it's called Quota technology. So what they do is they try to explain me. Again, I'm not a scientist, but they use the reflection of the walls, and because the waves cannot go through your human tissue, which is the good thing. That's why they got an FDA approval. So they need to be in a reflective zone, so it cannot be used outside. But imagine they had a showcase of a store where all the lights and all the digital displays were powered and got data via that technology. And they also were thinking and talking already with companies, car companies, that they can you've got loads of cables. You've got a cable harness in your car,
right,
for your mirrors, for your windows, for your lights, etc. If you can all drop the cable, drop the battery, and use this wavelength power, that will really do something. But of course, the question for me is, but what does it do with my health?
Right. Well, that's always been the issue, whether it's be any form of signaling, whether is Wi-Fi safe. You know, the big conversation right now is 5G. You got all the doomsday. Oh my gosh, don't.
I worked for Vodafone, and in 1995 we already had a discussion. And to be frank, I think there are some people, there are some people allergic for strawberries.
Right.
So I think there are also people sensitive for radiation.
Right.
But I don't think it's a real big thing. But power is something else than data. So yes, and you see a lot of medical. We talking also about the startups.
Right.
A lot of new medical startups, which is very interesting. And for instance, I saw people measuring your stress level with a little device added to your wristband of your watch. Yeah. The quality of your skin, especially a lot of that amazed me. Always there are a lot of Asian companies involved in skin.
Right.
Do you have an explanation for that?
Well, skin they're more susceptible to skin cancer.
Okay, yeah, that's
right.
it. Yeah.
Same thing with me, because I'm so fair-skinned, being a redhead. Yeah. But it's interesting. My brother, who's 4 years older than me, has jet black hair, and he's the one that's had the skin cancer.
Okay.
Now, I'm also married to a nurse.
Okay.
So she makes me go to the dermatologist every year.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell her that she controls you every week.
She does that too. But the medical devices are always interesting for me because at HP I oversaw accessibility technologies. So the development of Braille keyboards and technologies for those that are, visually impaired or who are deaf. And how do you make computer technologies useful for them?
Yeah, there are also a lot of hearing aids here now.
Yep.
And there's one medical category which was not allowed until this year. I don't know which one I'm referring to.
Yep.
But,
the adult. We'll leave it at the exactly. Adult category.
Exactly. But they are now allowed to the show floor and they got their area. So
yeah, we actually saw a bunch of those at Showstoppers on Tuesday night. They were all demonstrating their products and their wares at the Showstoppers, which is a press event held on Tuesday night here in Las Vegas.
And that's also, we were talking about these startups, and a lot of them underestimate the power of showstoppers.
Yep.
So they spend a lot of money on the show here, and they forget to spend a little bit of money. I know it has a price tag, but I still think it's Showstoppers and Pepcom. We shouldn't forget them.
Pepcom's on Monday night.
And on Tuesday, there's Showstoppers. You get one chance to meet a lot of press. I only don't understand why some of these startups are both on Showstoppers and on Pepcom, because I see the same journalists.
Yeah, like for me, I can't do PepCom because I always have a Monday night event I host at the Four Seasons, so I can never do PepCom. I can only do showstoppers. So for me,
Yeah, but as a journalist, I just have a hint for the organization of PepCom. Is they always do a theme. Have you been there to PepCom? They do this theme. So
when I was at HP, we would at HP shows at both.
Okay,
they showed at PepCom and at showstoppers.
Oh, by the way, HP. I think they're doing a great thing, and I'm not sponsored to say that, with these casings about these new laptops. They were at showstoppers, and that's also a trend which I see now here, that environmental issues really come on the agenda.
Yeah.
You see there's a Dutch company who recycles water. There's an American company here which makes water from air and sun.
Yep.
You see new materials, fabrics made of plastic. Targus bags, they make it of plastic. And so also HP now makes
exactly. So Stacy Wolf, who runs all of industrial design for HP Inc., and then Glenn Wong, who's now the manager for industrial design for consumer, they've come out with the new casings. Glenn, in fact, launched this week a new laptop sleeves that are using recycled plastic, reduced thread count. They're even to the point of reducing the thread count in order to reduce both the labor costs, but also to reduce materials that are not, you can't easily use thread that are recycled threads. So they're being very sensitive to literally everything to try to really optimize. And it's a great strategy.
But even smaller companies, there are a few phone case manufacturers left, and one of them I saw they had an organic based case.
Yep.
So after 3, 4, 5 years, you can throw it in the garbage again, and it gets again with nature.
So as we wrap up here, if people want to read, what you're writing and what you think is interesting, where's the best place they can keep up with what you're doing?
Well, unfortunately, what I write is in Dutch, so it's in.
I read yours all the time. But
LinkedIn.
The translate button works really well.
Good. So we write on GadgetGear.nl about gadgets, about the fun thing, all those things. On LinkedIn, I often do an article on the trends and things I see. I also work for a design company, and there we also have a blog, GBO.eu, and that's where you can see what I do there.
Oh, great. And what we'll do is we'll have links all of that.
Don't forget Marketing Plan Today.
Oh, that's true, for your book. By the way, how's your book doing?
It's great. I think in 2 years' time now, 1,000 companies used my method to create a marketing plan in roughly 1 or 2 hours.
See. So if you haven't checked that out, we'll actually have a link to the book also. We'll put all that in the show notes. So you can hop over to killerinnovations.com. With that, thanks for taking the time to listen to today's show. We will be here next week covering more innovations and technologies and talking to innovators doing great stuff. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Don't go anywhere. Enjoy your week. Go change the world. Bye-bye.